the customer support receives like around 1,000 emails per day. How many feedbacks are they going to get?
The benchmark we've seen is like we have 5 to 10% of the user base that would give feedback to you.
How do you measure how much of revenue could be impacted by that feature?
If multiple users request for the same thing, the aggregated revenue potentially influenced by this feature, because we also capture customer data and revenue data.
You talked about revenue-centric feedback loop management. How is it different from a standard user feedback process?
It's highly personalized, or it's signal-based. You just have to mark it as released in Jira. That's gonna synchronize on GitLab or any other system you might use. And we've been successfully reigniting those type of deals through.
Welcome to another podcast of Product Founder Matei. I'm super excited to talk with you today. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Happy to be here, Amir. I'm Matei. I'm 40 years old, happy father of 2 girls that are ready to work the world in SaaS and B2B SaaS for a bit over 10 years now. Been leading sales teams, scaling go-to-market, and I'm also the founder of ProdCamp and a consultant for B2B SaaS companies.
That's great. Can you a little bit explain about what is ProdCamp and why did you start it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started ProdCamp about 4 years ago, and the story behind ProdCamp is just me and 2 of my colleagues in a former company called MSP360. I had the problem we want to tackle with ProdCamp, meaning we had a user feedback management problem. We had a very complex SaaS, B2B SaaS product with very intelligent, smart users that knew what they needed and technical people that knew what they needed, and tons of feedback coming from multiple channels, multiple sources. And we had a really hard time seeing what trends and what insight mostly could drive our prioritization and product roadmap at the time. So we looked a bit everywhere, and it was very expensive products out there, very hard to deploy and maintain. So we decided to build ours to simplify this workflow, and first primarily for our need. And then we discovered that other B2B SaaS company had the same problem. So we expanded, and the core value proposition of ProdCamp today is helping B2B SaaS company convert user feedback into revenue and product impact for their team.
And can you explain a little bit more about how does the product work? Let's pause here for a second. The other day, I was looking into our channel analytics, and I noticed many of you guys are watching a lot of our episodes, but not yet subscribed to our YouTube page or Spotify. I will ask you as a favor, please support us by subscribing to our YouTube page and Spotify page, and I will promise you I will do everything in my power to make each episode better and better. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So it's fairly simple. We try to connect as many feedback channels as can be relevant for your company. So we don't necessarily push our clients to choose the way we do things, but we prefer to adapt to the way they do it today. So for instance, we know that customer success and support is a big proxy for feedback and product insights. So we are connecting with an email forwarding system or with an intercom integration, the feedback and the communication received by your support or CS teams with IDs that are shared by your users. So in one click, basically your support team can capture a message that contains a feedback, push it to ProdCamp. We automatically identify the account that gave the feedback, and we parse the content, and we allow our users to then tie this user feedback to another object that could be called a product opportunity or product feature, depending on how mature is the ID. And inside this feature, we basically aggregate all the information of all the customers that can be interested in the same specific functionality or product improvement. So once we do that, because we also capture customer data and revenue data, we are able to give a weight to this opportunity in terms of number of requests, for example, but also, which is more interesting and more valued by our users, in terms of revenue impact. So how much revenue could be influenced by a specific feature.
How do you measure that? How much of revenue could be impacted by that feature?
So we just take the either the opportunity number, if we are talking about a prospect, and we plug it there and we add it. We aggregate all the opportunities value that could be out there, and we aggregate also with the current revenue of customers or accounts that have been pointing out for specific functionality. So that's how we do it in a very simple way.
And what about let's say when the feedback is users are like angry and they're like saying like, we have these bugs, and then there are some users that are asking like, can we have this feature? Can the tool differentiate these?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I won't say that our product is necessarily designed for bugs and fixes. Obviously, many people are using it for that as well. But the primary focus is product improvement in the way of we want to innovate based on customer needs. But it's a very easy way you can tackle that with ProdCamp. You basically have tags that are linked to a feature object or feedback object. And that can be categorized either as bug fix or improvement. And then you can differentiate also when you want to actually work on product improvement and fixes. You can just filter out everything that is tagged as a bug or fixed. And when you want to, do an initiative around innovation, and in that case, you would preferably look at the other side of things.
I see. Let's say some companies have a lot of email going on, right? Their customer support receives like around 1,000 emails per day. So how many feedbacks are they going to get? Of course, this depends on like how many features is being requested, right? So I have two questions here. One is like how many they will get, for example, today. And what if tomorrow and then also next day, the same number of emails are being sent, which is almost the same request as previous days? Is it going to each time create a new one, or how's that database created?
Yeah, so the benchmark we've seen is like we have, and it depends on the product, that's why the scale is simple to double. You have 5 to 10% of the user base that would give feedback to you, product feedback to you. So that's not necessarily a matter of how much communication you have with them, but what is the extent of your customer base. So yeah, that's pretty much how you could quantify that. Regarding duplicates, we handle it very easily because, as I said, we identify who give what feedback. So if someone gives the same feedback twice, we know we already counted and included his feedback because we identified this person and this account, and we are able to say no need to transfer it again there unless there is a new piece of information. And that's what we do actually. We don't count again the request. We don't aggregate another number on it saying, oh, this account asked it twice, so it should have more weight. That's not how we look at things. But we will add the content of the feedback just in case something new came up. Maybe, yesterday he said that and he needed this type of feature because of this problem. And maybe a new problem or a new impact has surfaced meanwhile. And so we want to capture this piece of information because it's going to be important for product.
So just to understand one more time, if multiple users are asking for a feature in different days, it does not increase the weight of the importance of that feature?
In B2B, you have accounts and users. So we need to differentiate that both when we're talking about feedback and features. If multiple users in the same account request for the same thing, you will have the number of requests that will go up, but not the revenue associated with it, because the account the revenue will be account based, basically. But if you have multiple accounts requesting for the same thing, then not only the volume of requests will go up, but also the aggregated revenue potentially influenced by this feature.
That's pretty interesting. When earlier we talked via LinkedIn, you talked about revenue-centric feedback loop management. What does that look like, and how is it different from a standard user feedback process?
Yeah, that's actually a feature I should have talked about when you asked me about ProdCamp right away, because this is actually one with the revenue metric and the potential revenue influence by a feature, which is one of the most valued functionality we have. The second one is exactly the automated feedback loop. It's much better than any release note you could send out there that will aggregate all the innovation in your product. Because for many reasons, actually. The first reason is because it's highly personalized and it's signal based, right? Like sales it's much better when it's signal based. Here, we also receive the signal of the interest of this account or these users toward a specific functionality or product improvement. So when we get back to them and we tell them something happened, either we prioritize this and we started working on it, either this is now released as a beta, please test it, we already know that they are interested. So the response rate and also the ability to give additional feedback to keep refining the feature further, we know it's important in continuous development and in SaaS, is also higher. So that's really two things that allow us to say we have a better feedback loop than most of the people. And the third reason is you could also integrate their prospects that are still in the sales cycle, in the sales process. And what we've seen, and we have a couple of testimonials even on our websites to be able to back this up, is many of our customers have reignited hundreds of thousands of contracts value just because of ProdCamp feedback loop. So example, a customer comes in, he finds your product really great, he's happy with most of it, but you are missing a core feature, right? The relationship is good, he tells you about it, and you register that as a need that your product doesn't fulfill at the moment, right? Then this customer, for the feature reason, goes with another provider maybe that doesn't do everything maybe as good as you do, but has these core functionalities that this customer need. So he goes with them, but you, because you listen to your customer needs and you use the feedback to actually prioritize your product roadmap, you do the work, and 6 months after, you release this feature. You just have to mark it as released in Jira. That's going to synchronize, or GitLab or any other system you might use. This is going to synchronize with ProdCamp and will fire a highly personalized email telling your prospect about the release. And we've been successfully reigniting those type of deals for our customers through this.
No, I love that. That sounds like a very useful feature. So I'm just wondering, why do you think many product teams still fail to make user feedback a core part of their strategy?
That's a very good question. I think that many product teams are pushed to ship features and are very much pushed toward delivery instead of discovery, which is, I think, a principal mistake, because delivery becomes much harder when you don't do discovery well. And we end up in a situation where, there's a couple of reports out there that stated where on $1 million budget product team, you end up with roughly 70% of the product feature you might release, and so the budget you're spending on this team, that goes to waste because the feature are underutilized heavily. And then you find yourself in a product team that ship constantly tons of a feature at speed, and you still get lower product impact, which makes everything and all the model harder, because SaaS and B2B SaaS subscription model is about continuous impact and reiterating this impact and increasing the impact of your products. But instead, because of the time spent and the product team being pushed so much far on the delivery side and working closely with engineers and maybe doing mock-ups and stuff like that, and QA for the engineers and what not so, you end up with a situation where there is a big waste there, but it feels productive to ship, right? It feels like motion, and impact is a bit harder to track.
And that's very interesting. I love that. So what advice would you give a startup team that's collecting feedback but doesn't know how to turn it into an action?
Well, use ProdCamp pretty much, I mean, the main thing ProdCamp does is that it takes out of the product team plate a lot of the user discovery work, and it facilitates it. And we know, you and I, that product team don't have extensive time, right? They are asked to do deliveries. So we need to be mindful about the reality of product teams and not just tell them that they should do something else, right? Because it's easy, but they live in the real world. And if the map doesn't match the territory, if the theory doesn't match the reality, you can draw the most beautiful map ever. Nobody's going to use it, right? So our first principle is to say we want to facilitate this process. We want to use the internal resources that are already present in the company to be able to act like proxies. I mentioned support, I mentioned CS, I could have mentioned sales teams as well, to help the product team to improve the way they do discovery and to improve the way they can tie a functionality or product improvement to actual impact. So I would say that the first step, maybe before even you use ProdCamp, is see what resources in your company can be your proxies to discovery, and go talk to them, make them your allies, and take it from there, and then only deploy ProdCamp.
Yeah, when we again spoke earlier, you said simplicity should be the secret weapon of B2B product management. What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, I think that in most cases, what I've seen in the past 10 years being in the industry, we have a tendency to a bit overcomplexify things. We want a framework for everything. And that's actually have a tendency to slow us down. And in most cases, they are overkill for the problem we want to solve. So for me, looking at product through the revenue lens, like ProdCamp does it, and the product improvement through the revenue lens, is a simple way to align everyone over why are we doing what we're doing, right? Instead of story points, instead of, other ways to frame the work, try to measure how you deliver, how you could deliver and all, just include the revenue metric, or one metric that is close to revenue as it can be, and align your teams around that. I've been talking with a product leader recently that tell me that, for instance, they took as a North Star metric for the entire company user activation rate. That's a great example of how you can simplify things for everyone, because user activation in many cases in B2B SaaS is a decent metric. I'm not saying it goes for every context, obviously, but it's a good metric to align people around, because it touches sales, it touches CS, it also touches the product work, it touches support as well, because they have probably to support customers during onboarding and help them. Really, it's just a matter of simplifying things that we have a tendency to overcomplexify, just by choosing what we are looking at and taking something that is as close as possible to what matters the most for any companies out there, which is revenue and maybe profitability. Other metrics, I think in most cases, they might be good proxies, KPIs, to understand if we are on the right path to get to our North Star metric, but they are not the same thing as a metric to align a company around.
Yeah, I know you have a great example because you worked at Action One. So can you walk us through how focusing on simplicity and outcomes helped shorten product meetings and also drove revenue?
Right. Yeah. So Mike Walters is actually the CEO and the president, of Action One. Action One is a cybersecurity company. They do basically patch management, and they have been a customer of ProdCamp for a couple of years, more than a couple actually, almost 4 years now. They were on one of the first, I think, and Mike recently shared a story with me where, Monday meeting, product, engineers, support team, everyone is here. The CEO and the president are here, and it's a roadmap and product prioritization meeting, right? So you start having lengthy conversations coming from support or a couple of engineers that are worried that there is signals that this specific segment of the product doesn't work well. And everyone start to panic around that because in the past 10 days, you've been, number of tickets being raised. You've seen number of tickets being raised in the support through the support team. So support team comes and say, we need to do something about it. This is start to be critical, and they feel the urgency because of the proximity in time, right? But then Mike told me what he did was simply open ProdCamp, go on the feature and roadmap page, sort the feature by revenue potential. And he looked at the couple of fix and improvement that the support and a couple of our engineers were suggesting to do and show the number to the entire team. It was $15,000 in potentially influenced revenue. Just so you know, Action One is a multi-million-dollar company right now. So they were afraid and worried, that a $15,000 bug could influence and impact them very badly. And this was requested by 7 accounts across hundreds of thousands, actually, for Action One. And then Mike showed them the other list of the things they were currently working on for an aggregated potential value of $20 million. And he asked them, are you guys saying we should pause some of this that represent all this money and all this revenue for the company to do these things that represent $15,000 for the company? The conversation was closed. Everyone told Mike, you are right. We forget about this. And they just keep the initiative on. And the meeting was probably 3 or 4 times shorter than everyone sharing opinion about what they should do and what they think is important.
That's a very interesting story. When I look at your career, what's very fascinating is you have operated both in sales and also product sphere. And I want to ask, what's something most product managers misunderstand about B2B sales teams?
I think marketing and sales and product and sales is like dog and cats in most companies. So you end up in a situation where you think you are enemies because you think that you have conflicting priorities. And maybe in some companies, you have conflicting incentives, and that's a problem that should be fixed. But in most cases, the product team and the sales team want the same thing. They want to increase revenue. They want to bring in valuable clients that will help the sales team close their revenue target and the product team get closer to their goal, which is making a great product that solve great and impactful problem and bring a lot of value to the users. So I think that as soon as sales team will spend maybe 1 or 2 days in the shoes of the product people, and the product people might spend a couple of days as well in the shoes of the sales team, or sitting closer to the sales team and sharing their goal and sharing how they are aligned, actually, that could solve many problems in many companies. And same for the CS team. They have a tendency to be a bit closer from product naturally, but still there's a lot of misunderstanding between those two teams. And the last thing maybe is, and that's my, maybe maybe I'm biased because I'm from sales originally, but I think that many product pros still struggle to understand they are sitting in a business function. In the industrial era, we had a tendency to consider product and operations like a service function, like something that should serve the rest of the company. But in B2B SaaS, and maybe in SaaS in general, it's not true. product is embedded as a business function. And I think there is a pivot, a shift in the mentality and maybe in the type of people that we hire for this type of roles as well, to look more toward professional and expert that have sharp business acumen.
That's very interesting. So you think that in B2B, especially SaaS, the product people should be a bit more business mind?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the big missing parts today. It goes down and boils down to the thing you were asking earlier, which is, and we talked about it earlier, which is they are being pushed toward delivery. And delivery is a highly engineering technical role. You're not supposed to have, we are not asked to have business acumen when you are in delivery. You're not going to ask an engineer to be a businessman. That's fine. But the product role should turn toward sales and the business side of the company, and spend a bit less time on the engineering and delivery side.
That's very interesting. Based on my experience, when I test the products that are B2B, they're really not user friendly. It's just more like they just took the business matters into consideration and not if it's like really a customer focused or not. So it's very interesting to see that still, even though I as a product manager feel like a lot of the B2B products really lack a lot of product thinking, you are saying as a VP of sales, you feel like still those product managers are not really thinking as a business first.
But I think it's touching. Those 2 points are really heavily connected. The fact that it's not easy for a customer in B2B to come in and get to the impact the product promises easily, because this is what you're describing. If the onboarding is not user-friendly, it's not as you said, then it's harder for a user to get to the value the product delivers. And that has a huge business impact. And that is being compensated usually by white glove sales or white glove CS onboarding, but it comes from a lack of business acumen, because if you would understand from where the customer needs comes, maybe you could facilitate the path to the impact, right? So I think that's connected. That's not the contradiction.
I feel it's connected. It's not connected. It's like kind of both. We have like the business led and we have product led. Usually organizations who are more product led, they're more user friendly, right? So B2C. Then B2C. Product led is mostly B2C. And so when you come from B2C, those amazing products, to the one that are mostly B2B, the level of user friendliness immediately drops, because the product managers in those organizations are also less product managers and more project managers. They're mostly focusing on delivering as a project. This business company that we are working with, they're requesting this feature. We need to make sure in 6 months we deliver, and they're going to have like a massive integration. It's like a bank or like a big company, right? But when it comes to B2C, we are not really thinking like that. We don't have these big clients that we need to make sure the product really works for them. It's like B2C, so it's really small users, but on a massive number. So they have a high impact. Yeah, high volume, exactly. So that's why when I look at a lot of these B2B products, I truly feel like it's a product without soul.
Well, that's interesting, because you have now more and more products that are sitting somewhere in between.
Now it got better.
Yeah, you have more and more
now
of those.
It got better.
Take Notion, take Slack, actually. Slack is a great example. Slack started as a very B2C consumer type of app, but nowadays where they make their money is through, a couple of hundreds of customers that are enterprise level customers, highly B2B end. And this is where they make the money. So I think the future might be in the hybrid model. You mentioned also product-led, sales-led type of motion. I think that To distinguish those and to keep them strictly separated is mostly a mistake. Again, it depends on your context, your product, and your market. But in most cases, I believe that to have a successful product and a successful company, you should have a hybrid model at some point, once probably you pass PMF and all that. But from my observation, the best product is the one that managed to have a combination of this kind of very B2C time to impact velocity, but with also the type of value and the type of like level of integration and kind of project approach that you mentioned, as well, and built in their teams. So maybe that's the future.
Definitely. I do think that also in any organization, the balance is very important in almost everything. You have to have a business mindset. Also, you need to be product led as well. So not too much of product led is good, because then you have no revenue and everyone will get fired. When it's extremely business focused, then there's also other challenges that you start to face.
As an early stage, product-led is also a big trap. Even if you just pass PMF or just close to the PMF stage before, after, relying only on a product-led motion doesn't give you the ability to use the feedback and to have this conversation, so insightful and impactful conversation with users. I've seen not so long time ago a post of Enzo Avigo, who is a founder and CEO of June SO, great solution out there. He said, and I think they're past 1 million, if I don't mistake, in terms of revenue. So they have good traction and all. But he said that they intendedly didn't add too much self-onboarding mechanism and are not trying to have their users self-onboard, not because they cannot make the product easy to get to, but because they want to have those early conversations with their customers that's going to help them refine their approach and the way they provide value and impact to them. So yeah, that's also one aspect where we need to be careful about the product-led.
Definitely, that's also true. I mean, I'm definitely loving the conversation, but I want to make sure that we are also on time. Sure. Is there something that you would like to tell the listeners to check out? I know you also have a great podcast.
Yeah. So I have a great podcast. It's called Excuse My SaaS. I'm lucky enough to have had a great guest. I think we are a bit over the 20 episodes now. So it's a great guest, great conversation. We try to keep it short, informative, practical as much as possible. So no episode goes over 40 minutes. Not as unscripted as your podcast. We prepare a bit more in advance because that's how we approach it. But I really love this conversation that we're having today as well. And it feels very natural. That's something that people could look at. I'm also the co-founder of Product Ambulance, which is a community for all people in SaaS, product people, but also customer-facing teams and all, where we try to entertain peer-to-peer conversations based on expert-guided peer-to-peer conversation on specific topics. I try to use the collective brain to find solutions to all those problems that we are meeting in different companies.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Definitely the links are going to be in the description, so all the listeners that are interested, you guys can check out the links. Matei, thank you so much for joining this podcast episode. It's been an amazing conversation.
It was great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Wow, you made it till the end. I'm very proud of you. Comment down below which part of the podcast did you like the most and who should I interview next. Also, on the screen, you will see a lot of our other great episodes that you should definitely check out.